Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about home defense, specifically in a riot situation. And we're talking about a wide-scale riot where things are happening at many different places around town. Um, and it's progressed beyond the point of people just rioting and looting and maybe burning in the center of town. Okay, now it's spread out into the residential areas, and the problem with that is that if it's a riot that's kind of centralized in the center of town square, it's all in one spot. Police can kind of try to at least surround that area and kind of keep it quarantined. But once it spreads beyond that into the different residential areas, the riot is no longer centralized. So the problem with this is that when rioters are attacking residences, right, and it's a violent type of attack, you're going to have calls going into the police at a lot of different, for a lot of different locations that they have to respond to. And the problem with that is that the way police are trained to respond to those type of calls is they respond in mass, right? You don't have like one officer or two officers showing up to deal with a violent situation. You have like half the police department practically showing up. So what problem here is that when you're having all these calls coming in at once, the police have not really been training for that. They haven't been training to deal with a lot of violent attacks happening at a lot of different places at one time. So they're going to be completely overwhelmed, and they're not going to be able to respond to the call. So I mentioned this in a prior video. The solution to this is basically for the homeowners to have a prior plan in place for the common protection of their home. So essentially, we're talking about a anti-riot militia, but basically it's for the purpose of protecting their homes. They're not leaving their homes to go out and deal or assist with the riots away from their homes. This is at their homes. It's home defense, but we're going to call it a militia because what's a militia? If we ask George Mason, one of the co-authors of the Second Amendment, he said that a militia is all of the people, with the exception of a few politicians. Okay, so the fact that we have a bunch of homeowners with a cooperating and that they have a plan, a self-defense plan, that effectively makes them a militia. Okay, so a militia doesn't have to be something that's really complicated, or even people that are that train often. So one of the things I have over here, I'm going to call this an untrained militia. Okay, so we have this militia that has formed so they can protect their homes, and this is an untrained militia. The reason why I say that is, despite the fact that some of the people might be individually very trained or very skilled, or maybe they shoot a lot, they have not practiced. They have not practiced this type of home defense ever before, right? They've never been in this type of a situation before. They've never gone any place where they can simulate the way their homes might be laid out, and kind of put this into effect. So they're almost always going to be going at this cold, and it doesn't matter, even if they're ex-military, they've never been in this type of a situation. And here's the reality of it. I don't care if you've been to the worst places in the world, right, and in the worst combat conditions. That's different, from having to defend your own home with your own family and your own kids in there. Okay, so that's going to put a stress level on a person that even if they have been in a combat situation, they have never been in that type of a situation where their own family is now at risk. Okay, so even if somebody has a lot of combat experience, most likely they've never been in this type of a situation that we're talking about, where their home is actually being attacked. It puts a psychological stress that very few people are ever really prepared to deal with. Okay, so we are dealing with an untrained militia because, again, they've never been in this type of situation. They've never really practiced in this type of a situation, together. Okay, so what I have here is I have a layout of 6 homes in some random pattern. Now, usually there's going to be some type of a road that runs, down the middle. You might even have cross streets like that. The point is that there's usually going to be some type of road there because the riders are going to need to get there somehow. So if your home is kind of more set off in the woods, chances are that they may not even see it, or they're less likely to go off in that direction. Most likely, the riders would be going down maybe not because again, we're away from the center of the town, so now we're in a less populated area, but it's still going to be a main road that they're most likely going to go down. Okay, so I have a couple of houses here. I got a road here in the center. Okay, and one of the things that we'll notice with these houses is that they're fairly close together. I mean, they're not on top of each other, but they are fairly close together. So here's the thing with this type of a situation where you have riders loose on the streets. They're out to essentially burn houses or shoot into houses. This is not a robbery type situation where they're probably looking to come into the house and steal things, right? So that's a different type of home situation. Or people coming into a house specifically to hurt somebody. That's kind of isolated to one house. It's not going to affect all the other houses around it. So this is a situation where they're coming looking to drive through and attack all the houses, maybe throw Molotov cocktails into all of these houses, and just light up the whole road. That's obviously, this is a pretty extreme situation. But from what we've seen in this year, 2020, where you've seen cities practically burning, this is a possibility. So in a situation like that, where you have the houses that are fairly close together, what we want to do is we want to set up we want a home defense plan where people are in fixed positions. Okay, we don't want people running around around their homes, right? Because it's going to be almost impossible at some point to know the difference between who are the homeowners and who are the rioters. Okay, so and essentially what we're kind of dealing with here is command and control, right? So I have this all on the command and control. We have to have a clear distinction of who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Okay, and the easiest way to keep track of who the good guys and who the bad guys are is for the homeowners to stay in their homes, okay? Because then you know that all the other people on the streets are most likely bad people, and it is highly unlikely that if you've got rioters in the streets, throwing things, and that one of your neighbors is going to be out for a leisurely walk. Okay, so in that type of a situation where you have rioters down your road, everybody, it's safe to assume that everybody is in their house behind cover. Okay, that's where we want everybody. That's where they should be. So now, here's the thing: in a standard home defense type of situation, we typically don't deal with the threat until it comes into the home, right? So we don't have to worry about what's going on outside. The problem with the riot is that they are fully capable of killing you without ever entering your house. They can simply burn it. They can throw a Molotov cocktail into the house, and they can burn your house down. So it's imperative that we stop the rioters outside of the home, okay, before they have a chance to burn the houses from the outside, okay. So the question is, how do we stop them? How do we stop this? Obviously, the best, we have to shoot them, especially if they're lighting up a Molotov cocktail. We have to stop them. We can't let them burn our house down with us and our family in it. So how do we safely do that if the houses are so close to each other? Okay, so what I have here is I have zones of fire. Okay, so the way these particular houses are set up, right, we wouldn't want this house shooting in this direction, right, towards that house. So the way I would set this up is this house over here has a zone, right, where they know that they can only shoot forward here. This person only shoots forward here. This person only shoots forward there. This person only shoots forward in that direction. Okay. And that kind of assumes that they're all like one level, single level houses. They only got a first floor. They don't have a second floor, in that instance. If they do have a second floor, that gives us a lot more option because obviously, like, let's say this is, the first floor over here, right? Let's look at the height-wise. If you're on the first floor, you're shooting straight out. The bullets are traveling horizontal. they can travel a longer distance. However, if you're on the second floor and you're shooting down, right? So if they're shooting down, then the bullets, you can kind of, shoot at an angle where the bullets are going into the ground behind the riders rather than going straight across to the house across. So if these houses have a second floor, okay, now they have the benefit of being able to shoot in the direction of the other houses, but there still have to be certain cutoff lines. Now, depending on how far away these houses are, like in this instance, this person here, if they were shooting in this direction, I would say that's their, that's the limit, right? This side of the road here would be the limit of how far they can shoot. So they can shoot from here. I mean, here they can shoot all the way out, right? But here they can only shoot up until this point. So if there's somebody with a with a Molotov cocktail over here, they can shoot that person. But if that person is over here, they cannot shoot that person, right? Then it would be up to the person in this house to deal with that, who's able to shoot straight across. Okay, so that's the general idea there. So from the first floor, we have to be aware that our bullets are going out straight out horizontally, whereas from the second floor, they're kind of coming down at an angle, so that gives us more options. So depending on what floor you would be shooting from, what you have to determine what directions you can safely shoot at, and and what are the limits, like are you able to shoot in the direction of somebody's home, and up until that point, where's the cutoff line? So for right here, I would say that it's the road, but if this house was, let's say, further pushed back, right, then it might be a little bit closer to that. So that's kind of something that you have to look out your window from whatever position you're in and kind of figure out what your available angles are, so that you don't accidentally shoot your neighbor. Okay, so that's the high-low angle of fire that we need to consider. Other thing that's really important is, at some, as part of the command and control, we need to be able to signal each other. And really important is, especially if for some reason you need to exit your house, right? Why would you need to exit your house? Well, maybe your house has actually been set on fire and you need to exit your house. Well, if you need to exit your house and maybe go to your neighbor's house, an agreement or part of the plan that you guys would have is that, hey, listen, I've got a green flare. You see me coming, it's not likely that the riders would be running around with green flares. If you see a green flare, it's me. So don't shoot at me, okay? Let me come to your house because my house is now on fire. So the use of signal flares would be very effective. The idea of calling your neighbor to say that you're coming is going to be really hard, especially if there's active gunfire going on. They're not going to be able to hear the phone. So you need something that's really bright and visual that people can see. Whistles might be, if you have like a whistle, that might be effective to some point, but really a signal flare would probably be the best thing. And it has to be really, really simple. It's, signal flare would be like, hey, this is me, don't shoot at me, in the rare instance that you have to exit your home. Now, part of the reason why we want to have limits as to how far people can shoot, because there might be a reason why somebody might need to go outside their house. For example, if they see that somebody is outside their home and they're in the process of starting a fire or something, they don't have an angle to shoot them at, they might need to come out and deal with it. But again, the neighbor doesn't know who's who, right? And the neighbor doesn't have the angle to shoot at them, because then they would be shooting into your house. So that's an instance where you might have to come outside of your home. So again, because of the limitations as to, what of your neighbor's zone of fire, you can come outside at home, deal with the threat if you need to, and then go back in. Okay, of course that increases your personal risk, but now we're dealing with a situation where they're about to set your house on fire. Okay, so either way you're at risk, so you have to kind of determine what puts you at less risk. Okay, I think we're going to talk about guns. Okay, what guns do we want to have? I've talked about this extensively in other videos. Your AR-15 is going to be your primary gun. Your pistol is going to be your backup gun. Okay, the most common would be an AR that shoots .556. the 9mm, a pistol that shoots 9mm. Why? Because first of all, you got all these houses here. The next day, if somebody's low on ammo, right? You guys can help each other out. So if your neighbor needs some ammo, you can give him some ammo, and that's going to be a lot easier if you all are shooting common calibers. How about shotguns? Is there a place for shotguns? I'm going to recommend multiple guns. I mean, your AR being your primary gun, your pistol being your backup gun. But yeah, there could be a place for the shotgun. For one thing, if you're shooting a shotgun with buckshot, if instead of like, let's say this being the line, if you're shooting from here, if there's a threat here, right, with the AR, you might only be able to shoot up to here, but maybe with the buckshot, you could shoot a little further out up to here. So it may give you some more options, but I wouldn't depend on it. In the way I'm kind of envisioning this, you should have more than one AR. You should have multiple ARs. You should have multiple pistols. Certainly you should have one for every adult member that's in your household, and at least an extra one in case, let's say, your neighbor didn't have one. You can kind of help your neighbor out, or if his breaks or whatever. So in the defense situation that I'm thinking about, you want to have multiple guns. More options is better, but yeah, your AR is going to definitely be your primary, and your 9mm is going to be your pistol. 9mm pistol is going to be your backup gun. You definitely want to have lights on your gun, definitely on your primary gun. We're not going to be putting the lights on while we're shooting because that's just going to attract incoming fire. But at some point, you might need to put it on especially if you're really not sure. If somebody's like over here and you're not sure, maybe you think your neighbor might have done something weird or something and come out when he wasn't supposed to, you can momentarily put it on to identify him, okay, and then turn it off. So you definitely want to have the light on your rifle, but don't keep it on the whole time. Just put it on momentarily when you need to and then shut it off. Red dots are an absolute must on rifles, especially for night shooting. You're not going to be able to see your iron sights. So you definitely need your red dot. It's a lot easier for the wife to shoot. So you need a sling on your gun so you can, in case you need to go hands free as you're moving around the house. Because remember, you're not just, you may have to, first, one minute you might be looking this way, then you may need to run to the other side to be looking that way. You may have to constantly be on the move back and forth to kind of see what areas might be under threat. So you want to be able to move around without holding the gun the whole time. So you need the sling. Electronic ears, very important. Okay, you got to be able to hear the other members of your family. Okay, so one for you, one for your wife, one for any other adults in your house. You have, especially if there's any gunfire, that's gonna decrease your ability to hear, right? So you want to be able to, you don't want to lose your hearing ability. So you want to protect your ears, but at the same time, you want to be able to hear things. So if you just have standard earmuffs on, I mean, yeah, that'll protect your ears, but you're not going to be able to hear, let's say, your wife telling you about, hey, somebody's coming up on the other side of the house. So you definitely need electronic earmuffs to protect your ears, but also so that you can actually hear the things that you need to hear. Eye protection, because first of all, you don't want to get, especially inside shooting, like if you're shooting from the inside of your home, behind cover, let's say there's a wall next to you over here, there's a good chance that the brass is just going to hit the wall, bounce back, hit you in the face. You gotta have goggles, and all these things should be, wherever your gun is, right? That's where you're gonna have your ear protection. That's where you're gonna have your goggles. Those things just go together. When you go get the rifle, you put your glasses, you put your goggles on, you put your ear muffs on. So that's, all these things should be in the same place, ready to go. With electronic ears, I definitely recommend the ones that are auto time off. So like after 4 hours or something, they automatically go off to conserve the battery, because otherwise you're just going to run out the battery. Because you also got to think about the next evening. Okay, these riders may not be done that night. They may also come back the next night. This thing may last a whole week. Who knows? So you got to be able to go the distance. Okay. You got to have a safe. I talked about this in other videos. You got to have a plan. Where is everybody going to be? Where you're going to be? Where's your wife going to be? Where your other adult members of your family going to be? Where your kid's going to be? Right? So you're going to have a safe room. Everybody's got to have a job. Everybody needs to know what their job is. It might be that One person's responsible. Let's say you have an older son or an older daughter; they're responsible for keeping the smaller kids in their room. You might have, let's say, your older son, kind of running back and forth between the windows. Obviously, this is before there's any shooting going on. Just keeping an eye on it, giving you information. That's important. You might actually have, let's say, your wife in, on one of these corners, armed, ready to assist you if she needs to. So you gotta have a plan. You gotta have a safe room. Everybody needs to know where they're supposed to be and what their job is, and there has to be an exit plan. Okay, especially in this type of situation where we're talking about violent rioters in the street that are coming through with the intent of burning houses. Right, there is the possibility that they might actually succeed and set one of these houses on fire. Okay, houses today are pretty flammable. They're all made out of wood and a lot of flat, and especially if you throw something like a Molotov cocktail, it's going to catch fire. So if that happens, you have to have an exit plan. You got to be able to get out, get to your neighbor's house. Your neighbor has to know that it's you, so he doesn't actually shoot you. So that's what we talked about, the use of signal flares, right? You're going to have signal flares, same color, right? So that if they see, everybody knows the difference between a flare and what would be a Molotov cocktail or something else, or a torch. A flare really, is pretty easy to identify. So it's not like that the rioters will be running around town holding flares. So if they see somebody with running towards their house with a flare, and especially if they see that your house is on fire, or it might just be a situation where your house has been breached, right? They're in your house, and you need to, you decide that, hey, you're unable to defend the house for whatever reason. You need to get out. You have to have a way to get out of the house, get to another one of the houses, and at the same time be able to signal your neighbor that it's you and it's not the rioters trying to get to the house. Okay, so these are all things that we should consider in this home defense plan in the right situation. And this is, again, there's just a few ideas. There's other things that can be added to it, subtracted from this, depending on the situation. But there has to be some type of a plan in place. And one of the key elements of the plan is that, again, even though some of the people might be individually skilled, a lot of the people are not, and they certainly have not worked together for in this type of a situation. So we have to acknowledge that we're dealing with an untrained militia, and we need a very simple plan, a very easy plan that the least skilled people in this group over here would be able to utilize and function, and not accidentally shoot into one of the other houses. So that's why it's really important that, especially the zones of fire, everybody's got to know what the zones of fire are. This guy's got to know that he's only shooting that way, and you can set up flags, like red tape and stuff like that in advance. You know that there's stuff coming. You'll probably get some notice that there's riots going on in town. Or there might be, like I say, a telephone pole here or a tree or something like that. This guy over here, he needs to know what his zones of fire are, so he doesn't shoot into these two houses. Same thing with this guy. He needs to know what his zones of fire are, so he doesn't shoot into those houses. Or if they're all shooting, let's say, from the second floor, again, now they can get a little bit closer to the other houses, the adjacent houses. But again, there's limitations. Everybody needs to know what their limitations are. So if you guys have any other ideas, any comments, put in the comment section. If you're not a member of my channel, please subscribe. I see you guys soon.